So we're doing a Prothonotary Warbler, and this is my first time doing a YouTube voiceover to a video demonstration that I've done, which is a paid one on my website, but I thought I'd give it a try. So what we're going to do is paint a lifelike bird, and I'm mixing up some color. I'm using, with yellow, what you want to do is, I think what happens is people don't make yellow dark enough. And so my main lesson here is to make, okay, you have to talk fast through this. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're already on to the eye. And so we are, with the eyes, I feel like you really have to make eyes expressive and beautiful and engage the viewer. So that's what we're doing here. I am using a lot of shapes of color within this eye. I feel it's important. It's what will draw your viewer and connect them to the bird. And that's the goal with this. And I also do a lot of soft blending when I'm going in for some realism. And so I use my little blender brush to just mingle the colors. The other thing, I'm putting little details in, like there's usually a ring around an eye, and so I'm doing that as well. I think I really have to slow this down, but let's see if we can get through it, because it's 12 minutes if I go fast. So we also have, I use a lot of transparent oxide brown, beautiful color. I see transparent oxide brown in so many subjects. To me, it's nicer than a burnt sienna in that it creates these beautiful jewel-like base notes. Both oxide brown and oxide red. If you don't have them on your palette, I highly recommend giving them a shot. They are beautiful. They're from the Richard Schmidt palette. Now, I'm going in for the beak. Okay, that color mixing's out the window because we're already on to highlights on the beak. So we're doing the highlights. So again, using my blender brush, and I've simply used cobalt blue and oxide brown, and I see that in a lot of the beaks. Also in beaks, you'll often see a lot of Naples yellow. There's my cat, always getting in the way. Okay, so I'm just putting a little more detail into the beak, and now I'm starting on the feet. You know, I often find the legs and the feet have similar colors to the beak for some odd reason with birds. And I'm using oxide red here, and I've added a little permanent rose to give it a bit more pink to the legs to show the transparency of the legs. And the reason why I'm working on these, I find legs, beak, and eyes probably are the most detail that you'll have to do when you're doing these birds. And so I just get them out of the way. And I'm looking for as many shapes of color as I can when I do these legs. And I add, I'm looking at light as well. Right now I'm carving out the little talons, the little toes and whatnot on the talons. And I'm using a lot of cobalt blue, oxide red, oxide brown to depict these. And I find when you're doing the talons, it is important to spend time on them. I once heard a critic say that, oh, did you see the talons on that bird? That's awful. So I thought, you know, it's worth it to spend the time and render the feet, the talons, so that they look as real as possible. People will notice that, and I think it's important. Enough said about that. I'm using some pink tones into these feet, and I'm trying to create a little suggested texture. You know, I don't go too crazy rendering the heck out of these. I just indicate and suggest, and that seems to do the trick. So yeah, what I'm doing is just basically carving out the little details of this. Now I'm getting ready to put in some of the body. So I'm mixing oxide brown and yellow. I'm using cadmium yellow and oxide brown. And I'm also pulling in a little bit of purple for some purple notes. Purple is, of course, the complementary color of yellow. So it makes sense to use it as a darkener. And look how dark this, I like using this bird as a demonstration because look how dark yellow gets here. And this is important for you to, I think when we're first starting out, our tendency is to not get dark enough, but it's the dark color in your subject that tells the story of the painting, really. And I think that was my problem, is getting dark enough initially. So I'm encouraging you to go really squint your eyes when you look at your subject and try and get darker than you think. It's always darker than you think. Now, to be honest, I did struggle a little bit. I got a bit too dark, and you'll see me come and continually amend this dark area so that the transition between the light and the dark needed to be more gentle, and I'll resolve that, and you'll see that. And what I do is I build a darker of the lighter color, the lighter yellow, and I build on top of it. So because I want to depict anatomy, and so how I do that is by using darker colors for feather changes and anatomy changes. And then I slowly build on top. I'm using a comber brush here. These are grass brushes, and I find they're a bit of a shortcut to your feathers. They can quickly depict some notes of texture. And here, so I'm just, what I do is I start thin and I build thicker on top. And I'm using, you know, some pretty saturated yellow here, but that is the nature of this bird. It's pretty saturated. Here I'm trying to, now there's a reflection coming from the water, so it's creating quite a dark underbelly on this bird, as you can see here. So I'm just trying to blend the transition between the light and the dark quickly. All right, and so, yeah, I'm just building layers of feathers on top. I use my fan brush to smooth the edges and to bring out just some smoother textures. Now I'm adding some purple notes into the transition zone between the light and the dark, because these little flecks of color can really add character to your painting and just bring out some beautiful grays. Now I'm starting to work on the tail. And the tail has oxide brown and your cobalt blue. I use oxide brown and cobalt blue for so many things. And so I'm pulling in all the dark areas of the tail first, and the wings. I'm going for the wings as well. And using oxide brown, some red, and some purples in the dark area of this wing. And yeah, it looks like I'm just smoothing it around, you know, and I add little notes of feathers on top of these wings to just show some overlapping. The bird's in a bit of a funny position, so I'm bringing in some darker colors to show that the wing is partially going off to the side. And now what I do is a darker base on the tail. And there's a couple of wingtips, as you can see, and so I'm adding some of these. I start with a darker light color, and then I build light color on top of that. I'm just going to be quiet for a second because it's a lot to do to speed it up, to speed these up and talk over versus, I mean, my demos are normally what I'm doing is I'm talking as I'm going. And so that way I can describe each move that I'm doing in greater detail. So this is interesting, just going over top. But I'm just refining the detail now, a little reinstating the eyes a bit. And now I'm going to start working on, I'm adding more flecks of purple. And we're going to start moving into, I'm adding some of the mid-tone. And now we're going to start working into the background. I'm coming a bit lighter, making it softer. You have to be careful with photography because often it can be a little bit too dark. And so I'm just lightening that up and making smoother transitions all around. I use my comber brush for that. So now I'm going to move into the rock that the bird's standing on. And I do want this rock to be, I want it to be quite sharp and in focus, and then the rest can kind of fall away. 20% of your vision when you're staring at something is in focus. and the rest of it falls away. So the 20% that you look at, you want to be sharp, and then make the rest not so much detail. Anyway, so I'm recarving out the talons here, and I'm also adding a little bit more highlight and even carving out those little nails in these birds. And I think it's important even to get the nails. And I have techniques for that over on my website if you take one of my painting courses, which are very reasonable in price, $39 for a full demonstration on how I render these realistic birds. And they're also color mixing lessons. I'm all about color. And so I'm quite thorough when I'm teaching you how to get some of these realistic colors. So I'm just blending and softening, and I'm trying to present the light on the rock. And so now I'm going to work, I use Viridian, oxide brown, and oxide red to depict the water in this scene, and those are great colors for more shallow waters like rivers and lakes and ponds. And so I use just straight, I don't use any medium, and I'm just using the oxide brown, red, and Viridian to depict the water. Now for the rocks, it's just cobalt blue, oxide brown, and some white, and a lot of softening. Now I'm trying to show that the rock is in the background, so I'm again just softening that. I use my palette knife to depict some of these ripples in the water. I find the palette knife is fabulous for that. It just gives these crisp lines. And then you can use your palette knife or your brush to sort of amend those ripples. All right, and then again, just coming in with a few more details, and I make a decision here. I decide I don't like how the eye goes directly to where those legs are, so I decide to fill it in with some background color. This isn't always the best approach. Sometimes it's better just to paint through and then reinstate, but here I just decided to go ahead and paint over. And there's the finished bird. Thank you for watching this demonstration.